next team to the championship, I'd always pick Kyler Murray first.
All right, Key. So you weren't here when these comments came out from Ryan Clark. The Ravens need Lamar to get into the zone. Get in the zone. Brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Where was I?
You were on the injured list, the Key JZ injured list, retroactive to Tuesday. We'll make sure the injured list says that. The reason our yesterday Dr. Pepper Twitter feed essentially said, is Ryan Clark right? I mean, who's going to win a Super Bowl first, Murray or Jackson? Believe it or not, more than half the respondents said Murray.
Prisoner of the moment, right? The guy right now has come out and not necessarily complained, vented his frustration about his offense and some of the things that's happening to the Baltimore Ravens at the line of scrimmage from the defensive opponents. So people are going to look at that and be like, ah! And meanwhile, Kyler Murray is throwing the ball all over the lot with DeAndre Hopkins, Larry, my grandfather Fitzgerald.
Respect your elders.
Here's my guy. That's my guy. Kristen Kirk bombs away. Mm-hmm. Edmonds and Kenyon Drake, along with a little bit of what's the kid from UMass when he's in every now and then? I can't even think of his name.
Oh, Isabella.
Andy Isabella. So he has a bunch of weapons that he can practice with and play with. He's throwing the ball to Willie Snead. Willie Snead, though. Good player, NFL guy.
Exactly what Bart said yesterday.
But it's not the same. In Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown, good complimentary guy, good piece to have, but it's not even close to DeAndre Hopkins or Larry Fitzgerald or Kristen Kirk.
You're saying he doesn't have a one.
Stop. Don't do this to him. Ryan Clark, in a little bit of RC, has some of that Ravens-Pittsburgh stuff in him, too. Right. That's, come on.
A little DNA in there.
Little DNA. He'd love to see the Baltimore Ravens fall right on their face. There's no question about it. And that's okay. But don't say that if he was in Baltimore right now, they'd have a better shot at winning the Super Bowl or even going to the Super Bowl. No, that's a lie. That's a flat-out lie. If you took those weapons that's in Arizona and dropped them in Baltimore along with Kyler Murray, that's a different story. Or if you took Kyler Murray and stuck him in Baltimore and took Lamar Jackson and stuck him in the air raid system in Arizona with those weapons, would you get the same thing? I believe you'll get the same thing Arizona's getting now.
Indeed. You mentioned the word Super Bowl. On the way, a couple of weeks ago, they were the Super Bowl favorite. A couple weeks later, we have to talk about them potentially missing the playoffs. And it would be the biggest story in football. We'll get into it after Key has this word from our friends at Dr. Pepper.
I'm rusty. I'll find it.
Rain this morning, but it turned out to be a beautiful day at Augusta.
It was good all around. I dribbled well, hit my irons well, and putted well. There's really nothing that I could have done a little bit better.
He's been looking at putting everything together. He finally did it. He did everything well.
All of those guys describing one man, the defending champion at the Masters, which may seem hard to remember considering it's been almost a year and a half, 19 months since we've had the Masters. Of course, that's Tiger Woods, 4 under 68. Paul Casey, the Englishman, is leading with a 65 after round one. Tiger's 4 under 68, by the way, was bogey-free. He's traditionally a slow starter at the Masters, so this was quite the revelation. First-round coverage has to resume today. They had to suspend it because of darkness. They'll be out on the course. Some of the guys will be out of the course in less than an hour, about 7:10 a.m. Eastern. Coverage resumes on ESPN at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Featured groups on ESPN+. So let's just hit on Tiger here really quick. In search of his 6th green jacket, which would tie his boyhood idol, Jack Nicklaus. There's just so many great stories that are out there. And the fact that he is in contention after so many amazing moments, Jay, at the Masters, hugging his late father Earl after a win, hugging his two children last year as a father himself. I mean, the stories are just amazing. That Tiger is in it, maybe heading to the weekend. We'll see what happens later today. It's one of the best stories in sports going right now, and let's love it.
Man, it felt like you were watching old school Tiger yesterday. And even the way he started off with the greens being a little bit more soggy due to the conditions, and you saw them pick up speed throughout the course of the day. I mean, he missed that birdie on the last hole, but still, I mean, his drives were good. He got off the tee extremely well, and it felt like there's a lot of momentum going into day 2.
Yeah, the greens were soggy, and it was one of those things. No, look, he looks healthy to me. He just looks healthy. He doesn't look all puffy. He looks nice and trim and slim. He reminds me of somewhat of the younger Tiger Woods, and you can certainly see that he was composed yesterday despite the weather conditions, despite the soggy grass. See, you didn't think I knew all that sort of stuff. I fooled you, don't I, Jay?
Yeah.
But when you watch him, it just certainly feel like he's comfortable. Like this is a situation where he's comfortable. Now, whether or not he wins it, he won't lose it by, to the point where he's lost other tournaments where people's like, oh, God, get him out of here. That's what I see. I see him playing to the point where he's going to keep the pressure on.
I just want to say a couple of things. I mean, Tiger's gone back-to-back once before at the Masters in 2001 and 2002. This back-to-back would be one of the best repeat performances of any back-to-back in any sport. You want to talk about Michael six-peat with the 2-3-peats, the Rockets going back-to-back, the Yankees and their dynasty. This sort of back-to-back for Tiger would be right up there with the greatest consecutive feats in sports history.
I know we saw it at the U.S. Open, but still not having any patrons, not having people there, and Tiger alluded to this in his post-presser. Usually on their approach shots, if you're hitting a long-distance shot, you can tell by the fans' reactions where the ball lands, right? Even if you have draw on the ball, where it comes from. Just watching the condition, it's different. It feels really, really different, even though you're watching the Masters. So to be able to be in position on day two with it feeling so different for all these golfers, whether it makes you heightened anxiety, not having patrons there, or whether it makes you more comfortable, it adds to what you just said.
I think it's the more comfortable side of things. I covered, believe it or not, a golf tournament prior to, in the off season. Genesis, which Tiger actually played in Southern California at Riviera.
His tournament.
His tournament at Riviera.
Yes.
And there was nobody there. It was like empty, right? And you could just tell and talk to some of the golfers that they could think different. They don't have to worry about the crowd roaring. They don't have to worry about some of those things. Their thought process is much different than it is when you have a crowd as they start to walk wherever they need to walk to. The greens, the trail, whatever you want to call it.
I feel as we get into this day three, it will be interesting, though, because the pressure that you felt last year, Zubin, when Tiger made a really good shot, hearing the roars from the patrons, that had to psychologically affect other people who are in contention when you know that a guy like Tiger is making headway. Or if he just birdied a hole, you're like, well, I have to birdie. It just puts subliminal pressure on yourself to perform.